As we close out the decade, 2019 and its wealth of games signaled a swan song of sorts. We knew we were at the tail end of the current generation of console as the big fish looked to set up to release their next console to the masses.
While sometimes that means we get a lot of shovelware, this time around, a lot of the releases stepped up with a sense of gravitas and hit the mark with a unique premise, or story, or idea that resonated with gamers everywhere.
Each of these top 10s and our honorable mentions all left a lasting impression on us here at DEE CODE, and they all had one thing in common. They each hit on some type of emotion through gaming, and they delivered on that specific emotion in spades.
Dance is a language of love and passion in some cultures throughout the world. When it comes to video games and video game soundtracks, the nostalgia that creeps in hearing a familiar jingle brings out the love and admiration of that song's franchise, and brings an instant smile to a face. Such is the case with our number 10 entrant, Cadence of Hyrule. Taking the unique move and fight to the beat mechanic from Crypt of the Necrodancer, slapping on a Legend of Zelda motif complete with characters from the franchise, and then sprinkling in amazing remixed classic Zelda songs to boot, and you have a recipe for success like no other.
Gears of War has come and gone over 2 console generations now, and some wondered if the series would ever evolve beyond the typical third-person action game. Returning with the latest in the series, Gears 5 does just enough to elevate its storytelling at its emotional core, alongside making some interesting genre choices like throwing in pseudo-open world sections to get you to better understand its universe. It's interesting to see series mainstay Marcus Phoenix take a backseat to the main crew, allowing us as fans to view him in a different light while coming to appreciate the new cast this new trilogy is presenting us. Gears is not shy to show its emotional side, and with some clever twists and an emotional depth towards the game's climax, it was a welcome entry into the series and showed that it has much staying power to keep going.
Respawn can do no wrong, apparently. From Titanfall to Apex Legends, the developer has shown they have a penchant for delivering top-quality production. In their entry into the Star Wars franchise, Jedi Fallen Order, they've shown that they can take a licensed property and knock it out of the park. Heck, the galaxy. Mixing the best of games like Uncharted, Zelda, and even Dark Souls, Fallen Order, besides being just an all-around great game for fans and non-fans alike, provides a sense of excitement that stood out this year. The Force was truly strong with this one, so we hope to see more from this studio and their spin on the Star Wars universe.
Fear is a powerful tool when used correctly in video games, and in A Plague Tale: Innocence, the sense of fear and dread is etched throughout the game's entire framework. From the creepy rats of death and the nerve-wracking stealth sections, to the quiet, somber moments where children reflect on their lives, A Plague Tale presented a harrowing story of kids forced to do the unthinkable and confront their darkest enemies in one of this year's sleeper hits that deserves to be played.
It's been a long time since a quality, honest-to-goodness role-playing game has graced this generation, and not since The Witcher 3 has anything even remotely captured our attention as The Outer Worlds did. Leave it to Obsidian to give us a game that manages to out-Fallout, Fallout, with multiple narrative choices and an improvement to the traditional Fallout systems that Obsidian originally created. The Outer Worlds showed us that they still have the chops to deliver an experience like no other, capitalizing on the fans' fondness for the systems and mechanics we all loved in Fallout, presenting them with a new face and a brand new IP that just works. Narrative efforts in video games come in many different forms, whether a game tells an entire story with cutscenes or using visual metaphor. The creation of the emotional investment in a game's story is always present in the dialogue. In Disco Elysium, there isn't much combat, but the world's lore, the massive dialogue options, internal and with the NPCs, and corresponding skill checks and mastery of its concepts are what's used to present not only a narrative challenge and difficulty, but also one of the year's best games and stories. Presented as a tabletop RPG complete with top-down, isometric view of the field, Disco Elysium offers a murder mystery and detective story that had us hooked from start to the twist-filled finish.
When the creators of Alan Wake and Quantum Break left Microsoft to head back into publishing for themselves, we were pleasantly surprised to see that happen. When their new game, Control, was unveiled, we immediately took notice. Presenting a unique take on the Metroidvania style of games and delivering an enthralling story involving psychic powers and otherworldly entities straight out of the X-Files, we knew developer Remedy Studios had found their mark and magic all over. Video games as art-given form is often quoted when discussing a lot of gaming, and coming in at number 3 is one that takes this notion to a literal sense, Concrete Genie. Coupled with a heartwarming story about overcoming loneliness and bullying, Concrete Genie was the definitive surprise hit of the year by having you create art within its mechanics and suddenly transforming into an action-adventure title towards its climax without missing a beat. Full of emotion, engaging gameplay, and a narrative not often found in this industry, Concrete Genie stands tall as the top underdog game of 2019.
When is a remake more than just a remake? In the case of our amusingly ranked number 2 entry, Resident Evil 2, Capcom gave the answer to that and then some. Not content to just slap the same game with a facelift for the current generation of consoles, Capcom saw fit to not only give us a game utilizing its brand new engine, but also deliver the definitive version of the game they wanted to make since 1997. The Tyrant has also never been scarier or memeier thanks to the many PC mods out there, and Resident Evil has also never looked this good before. A true sense of nostalgia brought forth into the current times. Resident Evil 2 is a masterclass in survivor horror, which solidifies why Capcom has worn the crown for so long, and with Resident Evil 3 on the horizon next year, we can't wait to sink our teeth into more remastered zombie madness.
And now for this year's honorable mentions.
Game of the Year.
Hideo Kojima has never been known for subtlety or his willingness to march to the beat of the industry's drum, and his long-awaited project Death Stranding is the apex of this truly auteur individuality. Even within our own team, we were initially unable to agree on Death Stranding as the top choice because of the various factors that have been cited not just across games media, but in our own gameplay habits. We ultimately realized that this game was the right choice all along, both in terms of what it represents to the DEE CODE brand and society at large.
Death Stranding has embodied our last 3 choices of Game of the Year in one package. It was a moving cinematic experience that defied expectations. It was a game emblematic of the achievements of the hardware it was crafted for, and it was a game whose design period garnered ongoing intrigue and released to contentious reviews. That last point in particular made us appreciate the appropriateness that such a divisive game about building connections also provides a way for us to recognize it as the capstone of 2019's theme of emotion. Few games this year brought about such a need for conversations about the actual game itself, and we certainly have shared our own opinion on the matter. By default, the game is a piece of media that requires some measure of review and can be best described as the ultimate form of etc., given the difficulty of classification due to the way it has been crafted.
Which brings us to our final point. There's a tendency when discussing this game to overlook that we now live in a time where we can enjoy otherwise solitary experiences like this as communities in ways not really possible in older generations. It's thanks to this technological unification that the central idea of coming together presented in both the game's story and mechanics flourishes, allowing it to represent an ethos meant to resonate across gaming and society itself. It is in this ability to come together for an experience, to agree to disagree for the sake of human discourse, that ultimately the game transcends its dystopian sci-fi story of saving humanity to provide what it clearly wants to in these fractured times. The ability to remind us all of what it means to be human, and to share this human experience through good times and bad together.
Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us across social media for updates. Thanks for watching!